Well, we're finally excited to tip off a brand new season. Um, a lot of people have asked me questions about a year ago, and no different than previous seasons. We have a lot of new players. This year, we happen to have 8 new players. So, regardless of what happened a year ago, very few of this year's team were a part of it. And of the new players, we have 4 freshmen, and then we have a really solid group of transfers, a couple that will be eligible immediately, and really looking forward to blending the entire group together. Nico Mannion and Josh Green represent us here today in terms of the players that I brought. Both are freshmen, but we don't really look at them as freshmen. You know, those guys are really seasoned. They're going to be a big part of what we do, and both are tremendous kids. Great kids, come from great families, and we're excited to have them as a part of our program.
All right. We'll open it up to questions now. Please feel free to approach the podium with Coach Miller and the student athletes in the back of the room.
Hi, Coach.
Hello.
All right. So, Coach Boyle was talking about he was going to press a little more this season. So I was just curious. It seems that they were talking about pressing in general, and I mean he was going to play more zone defense. So is that something that you've entertained at all?
No. I think the last 2 years, one of the things we're excited about is to improve and get our defense back. If you look at where we once were, we had a lot of pride in our man-to-man defense, and usually the defensive teams are able to win on the road, get better as the year grows. You get into those tough games in February and March, you have to be able to do both, score and play defense. But we're hard at work at our defense, but in terms of us changing a whole lot, I don't think we'll do that.
And then Dylan Smith, what does he bring to your team? Because there's a lot of confusion, it seems. I always feel like he's the glue guy for your team.
Dylan's one of those rare players in college basketball that he's a senior, number one, but he's also contributed on a number of teams, that he's been a part of. He's an older guy that works very hard. I think he's one of our team's best perimeter defenders, and along the lines of what you asked me a second ago, about our defense, he's part of the solution, I believe, moving forward for us this season.
And you talk about the fans a lot and their support, and I've seen it too. You talk a little bit about how your fans are so wonderful.
The fans at Arizona, I mean, they've been a part of our program for decades, well before I ever showed up. Coach Olson, in many ways, created that love affair between the community and our basketball program, and it's continued. When we're in challenging times, sometimes it's in a game where we're not playing well, especially at home, they become the loudest. As a lot of people in this room know, our fans travel. In our away games, especially on the road in the Pac-12, you can hear them, you can hear the pockets of them. And, going to the Pac-12 tournament, especially not a year ago, but 2 and 3 years ago, I mean, it looked like a home game. So, no doubt, we're very fortunate. Whoever the coach is at Arizona, I happen to be that coach right now. I'm very fortunate to have fans like that are not only passionate and love the Arizona Wildcats, but they're also incredibly loyal. And I think our players feel that. Nico and Josh, coming from our state, they know that, and I think it's a big reason why people like that choose our program.
Coach, you've been around the conference for a decade now. 2 of the last 3 years, 5 McDonald's All-Americans have come into the Pac-12. You have a couple this year. How have you kind of seen the talent pool rise in recent years around the conference?
Well, if I go back a decade, ago when I came to Arizona, when our staff, was brand new, it's amazing to think about how many great players our conference has produced. I think the numbers in the NBA speak for themselves. A few years ago, you had Markelle Fultz, number 1 pick. You had Lonzo Ball, you had Lowry Markkanen. You had 3 lottery picks who are all in their first year from 3 different programs. We followed that up with, obviously, DeAndre Ayton being the number 1 pick 2 years ago. So, that's just a small sampling. When I think of players in our conference. I think of Isaiah Thomas at Washington, who's gone on to have an amazing NBA career, but when he was playing in college, but he was really tough to deal with. Klay Thompson, first couple of years when you played Washington State, he was on their team, and you look at what he's become. So no doubt about it. And then when it comes to our program, we're fortunate. A couple weeks ago, Andre Iguodala shared a lot of his time with our team, behind the scenes in our locker room, and talked to them about life after basketball. But you think about what Andre's become, an iconic NBA player playing here with the Golden State Warriors. So no question. I think Pac-12, when it comes to producing talent and welcoming talent, and this year, to your point, there's some incredible freshmen in our conference, and I think that bodes well for the season ahead.
And sorry if you've been asked this before, but speaking about your freshmen, Nico and Josh, what have you seen from them in practice thus far? What are your expectations for them this year?
I think the first thing you want from the most highly regarded incoming freshmen is that they're coachable, that they don't think they have all the answers, and they're not just at Arizona to reach their own individual goals, that they came here to be a part of a team and to compete for championships and win. And also that they recognize that they have things they need to do better and work at. That's why they came to college. And hopefully that's one of the big reasons they picked our program, that they feel like they can grow and develop. Josh and Nico, and really Christian and Zeke, because those are the 4 incoming freshmen. Those 4 guys all have that same characteristic, that they're very coachable, and I think they're all very good teammates in their own right.
Having Stanley and Ronde on the same Toronto Raptors team that just won the championship, how special is that they're the duo is back together?
Well, we're proud of Stanley. We're proud of Ronde, and you're right. They're with the world champion Toronto Raptors. I think both of them are at pivotal parts of their career, and I know they both have had very good off seasons. So, we wish all of our NBA family luck. We have coaches like Steve Kerr right here in Golden State Warriors that's a part of our basketball programs, family. So there's a lot of them out there, and it's exciting to see all of them do well. But, yeah, the fact they're on the same team, it's ironic.
I got to know Jordan Brown pretty well, and he was being recruited and his family. I was just kind of curious what you expect him to bring to the program and how he's kind of fitting in so far.
No, Jordan Brown, I'm glad you asked about him. The way I would explain Jordan Brown as a part of what we do, there's not a high school player that we can go out and recruit this year that could come to us and impact next year more than him. And the fact that he's with us every day, man, he has a quality that he plays hard on every possession. And when you play the game with great effort and you're talented, you can't help but improve. And Jordan is going to be a really important part of our future. And he's already helped us right now, because you can imagine, our front court just on a daily basis, they can really challenge each other. Having Jordan, who doesn't play in games but is able to practice hard, it's been something that's really helped all of our front court players. And it helps Jordan as well, because, you have a battle of Ira Lee and Chase Jeter, Jordan Brown, Christian Coloco, Zeke Naji, Stone Gettings. Those guys all play against each other every day, and it's really made for an early competitive environment.
You touched on Stone. I was a graduate transfer coming in average 14, 15 points a game at Cornell. What do you expect from him this year for you guys in this year?
Well, Stone Gettings is 6'9", but he's different than the rest of our front court, which I think is something. He is more offensive oriented away from the basket, and he's one of our team's best 3-point shooters. He's very skilled. And when you put a roster together, having players that maybe are both the same height but are versatile, different from each other, I think it makes you a much better team, and I think a team that can be more successful. So we're counting on Stone, and he's off to a really good start. Believe it or not, he won our mile run, which we do every year. And, Stone's 6'9", maybe 240, and he ran a 5:13 mile. So I think that shows you kind of his mindset.
Do you think the 20-game conference schedule next year is a good thing or bad thing? And just, are there any other things that this conference needs to do to maybe get back to where it was?
Well, I think the 20-game schedule is part of the solution moving forward for our conference. It's what once was isn't today, and that's the obvious statement. We have other conferences that are already playing 20 games, and strength of schedule to get the most teams in postseason is a big thing. it's very difficult to get the most teams we can into the NCAA tournament when, our overall strength of schedule isn't as strong as some other conferences. And obviously, winning non-conference games is also pivotal, but by being able to play each other 20 games or more because of the tournament as well, I think that's going to help all of us.
And I mean, obviously, it's a big problem, but any idea as to why the conference has fallen off? I mean, what's going on there?
It's very cyclical. I'll use the Big Ten as an example. They may have had their greatest year ever a year ago. If you would have looked at them 2 years ago, I'm sure in the spring they were looking hard at, what was the problem, because they had almost a down year. It really stems from, who you lose, who you recruit. But I know in the decade that I've been here in this conference, this is as deep and as strong of a group of coaches as we've had. And I think that bodes well for our future.
You mentioned the coaches. There's 3 new ones. Do you have a piece of advice you would like to share with them as they enter the Pac-12 fray?
No, those guys, the coaches that are new, they're all very familiar with where they're at. Mick Cronin, I've known because I was the head coach at Xavier when he was the head coach at Cincinnati, and even before that. And Mark Fox, Kyle, those guys, they'll all do a very good job, and we're really thrilled to have them as part of our league.
Awesome. Your women's basketball team on campus really cooking with gas now, WNIT champions. What was your takeaway from Adia Barnes' run, and what does that do as far as the partnership that you guys have with basketball in Tucson?
Well, Adia's doing a great job. I mean, she's a lot of fun and really knows what she's doing. If you followed their success late in the year, our community, our fans got behind their team and had a sellout crowd in the last game of the year, which was amazing. But she's recruiting very talented student athletes, and I think the fact that she played at Arizona and as one of the all-time great players in our program's history really helps her, and it gives her a lot of credibility. And she knows the landscape. She knows the Pac-12. Plus, she was an assistant at Washington as well. So I think her understanding of the Pac-12 and her own pedigree as a player at Arizona, it really gives her, I think, a dynamic presence. And you feel that as you watch her run our program.
That's cool. Back to your team, 15 extra inches to play with, a 3-point distance. Does that affect what you want to do offensively?
I don't know how much it affects what we do, but the 3-point line moving back to the international line is significant. I think it'll have a big change. And I coached USA basketball, and being a part of FIBA, that distance is definitely a separator. And so I think for all of us, you don't really know a rule change till you go through a season, but I do think it'll have an effect.
Thanks, Coach.
Sean, 16 years now as a head coach. One of the things that we always talk about with players is, what are you working on to get better? How are you getting better? It's easy for them to kind of, the tangible evidence. As a coach, how do you improve your coaching philosophy, design? Do you read books? Like, I'm curious to know what you do to get better at teaching.
No, that's a great question. What do I do to get better? A lot of different things, but you're right. Learning the off-the-court things, leadership, how to build a culture, how to deal with, in today's world, maybe your best players being your youngest players. I think that's very different at every level, even the NBA. And, it's maybe, again, how things used to be done. It's hard to sometimes compare because it's a completely different model. But, Casey, I would say the one thing about the Pac-12 is we have a variety of really strong zone defenses. You play Oregon, you're facing kind of a press that can be more aggressive or sometimes in place to slow you down and let the shot clock work against you. And they get into a matchup zone, very almost like a switching man-to-man. I think UCLA with Mick will have kind of their own version of that, maybe even more aggressive, more pressure-oriented. You play against Mike Hopkins at Washington. You're playing against the Syracuse zone, which he knows well. And Wayne Tinkle plays zone. Utah plays a matchup zone. So when you coach in a conference like that, you can sometimes go as much as 2 weeks without seeing a possession of man-to-man. but yet in our program, that's what we do. So there's an adjustment. I look back at how we've practiced. So I think adjusting to, that, having our players the most comfortable we can be, the most prepared. And the other thing is, the zone offenses are different against a matchup zone and a 2-3 zone. So we're working hard at it. You throw in the fact we have 8 new players, the 2 guys that are with us right now, Josh and Nico. Trust me, they've never seen any zones like the zones they're going to see. So how do you go about preparing them? It's not right before the game. You start that in the summer and you move forward. And I think with all that we do, we have more of that mindset of preparing for zone defenses and maybe being more comfortable at an earlier period of time, both with our own team and our players. So I would say that's one thing that we really looked at in the offseason for sure.
What do you make of the new coaches that have come into the conference? What do you think they'll add to the league?
Well, I think each of them is very prepared. They've had success at other stops. You look at, Mark Fox, for example. He's been in the SEC for a decade. He's seen a lot of things and had some really good success in teams. The one that I know the most is Mick, because he was at Cincinnati when I was at Xavier. And, those teams at Cincinnati play the game with great effort. They have a defensive presence. They do it definitely differently in that they play a matchup zone for most of the game. And, Kyle, I think what he's done at San Francisco speaks for itself. I mean, I really enjoyed watching his teams play and tried to watch them whenever I could, both on offense and defense. So I think we have 3 really good coaches entering our conference, and they join a group that's been in this conference for a while and have done good things. So might be the strongest overall group that we've had since I've been here.